Wholeness. Welcome to Runes of Silvertree. This is Silvertree here, and if you haven't caught on, this month, the month of November, the focus with these videos would just be very, just connected to family. You know, where the end of the year is usually the time of reflection, self-reflection, that time where you spend quality time with your family members, quality time with your loved ones, quality time with those that are close to you, those who are no longer with you or with us, relatives and loved ones who've passed on, and we're just honoring their memory during the holy days or holidays. So I just thought for the month of November, given that there's Thanksgiving, I personally don't celebrate Thanksgiving in my heart, and because it's not something that came from the heart. It's not a holiday that really comes from a heart, or the heart space. I feel like Thanksgiving is it comes from a space where people, I think it's more of a thing of guilt, due to American history and the history in the United States and our founding fathers and mothers, if you will, where they knew that the damage was done. So then they, it morphed into this thing where it's a week celebration, and one specific day, I think it's the fourth Thursday of a month or something, in November every year, where that's the day of giving thanks. And it just, I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way, because the indigenous tribes of the US, it's like, it's a weird concept. And now as an adult woman, and given who I am, and having a different, in the way I live my life, and a different perspective on things with holidays or holy days and where they truly come from, I don't celebrate it in my heart. It's something I don't get excited for. But with that being said, I do respect and honor the concept of family and what that means. And there are many of us who, come from, a normally dysfunctional, functional family and background, and those of us who come from abnormal, dysfunctional, functional background when it comes to our family. And so this series, and of the previous video where I focused on, how our relationships can be used as a spiritual practice, with this today's topic, we're going to focus on how your family's trauma is not your responsibility. Your family's trauma is not your responsibility, meaning your grandparents' trauma that they passed down to your parents, to your mother and to your father, and that the trauma that they passed down onto you, it's not yours. It's not your responsibility. What is the meaning of responsibility? Is to respond with your ability, right? What you're able to do. You are the only person that are having your own personal human experience within your vessel, within this body. You are I do believe in genetic memory, right? Where you have the genes that are passed down, the biological, the physiological, the features. You have mannerisms that are passed down from our ancestors and our great-grandparents and our great-great-great-grandparents, and characteristics, things that, and attributes that show up down the line, down the family tree. However, I do believe in autonomy and sovereignty, and for those of us who come from an abnormally functionally or functional dysfunctional family, meaning on the outside looking in, it doesn't look all that bad, but from the inside looking out, it's a type of hell. It's a type of toxic space where you're not getting the nurture and nature type of relationship that you should. Your root center, your energy centers, your lower energy centers are fragmented in some way. So here we go. So family trauma. All right, everyone has had family trauma. Some, again, it's a spectrum. Trauma is a spectrum, because something that I may find incredibly traumatic to me is something that isn't as traumatic to someone else. For example, you can have someone, let's say you have two kids. Kid A has a dog named Spot, and then Kid B has a dog named Sally. Okay, and Kid A loses their dog Spot, and Spot dies a tragic death. All right, a horrible tragic death, or he just got old and sick and it died. And Kid A is completely traumatized by the whole thing. You know, watching the dog die, having the dog no longer being part of the family or in the house, and it really, really, really upsets them, and it traumatizes them, and they're scared of death, right? They begin to create all these limited perceptions of what they think death is, and the end is, and where do we go after death, and all these other things. So it's a very, very sensitive thing for that person. They may not never own a dog ever again. Kid B doesn't affect that much. They lose, their dog Sally due to an illness, due to something very tragic, okay, like getting hit by a car or something like that. They have a different perception. They have moral support. People explain to them what death is, and they move on. They move forward on their path, and they have a deeper concept of what the life-death life cycle is, okay? You can have the same experience, and have two individuals that have a completely different, they internalize it and process it in a very different way. Okay, so with all that being said, that's just my general definition of what trauma is. I mean, it's pretty rough definition, but I really want to focus on just empowerment and giving yourself permission to not take on the wounds of the father, or wounds of the mother and sins of the father. You are not your parents. You are not what your parents did to you. You are not what your parents have done to you at all. You're not your experiences. You had the experience, and those experiences are then encoded in our memory, in our genetic memory, okay? That I do believe. If you have generational trauma, generation after generation after generation after generation, experiencing the same abuse or the same experiences, it becomes embedded within the ancestral line. And I see it as a melanated Black woman and living in the US, right? Black Americans in this culture, we carry, I feel that most of us carry this burden of the past, of our forefathers and our foremothers, and we haven't gotten over it. It shows up in how we treat each other, how we treat our children, how we treat our fathers and our relatives, how we treat the world, what we demand and ask of the world, how we perceive ourselves. Generational trauma is something that we think we have to hold on to it because that's all we have. Who are we without that burden of our mothers and of our fathers? So again, it's hard for me to keep this into perspective, because in the typical Black culture, it's like you honor and you respect your adults, but then you're shown something completely different. Okay, it's full of hypocrisy and double standards, and that causes cognitive dissonance. It's almost like someone pushes you and says, "Oh, I'm not pushing you." It's full of gaslighting, and I find that when you choose a life of autonomy, and when you choose to take full responsibility of how you perceive the trauma that's taken place in your life, you begin to liberate yourself. You begin to redefine your relationships and your spirituality and your purpose in your life. Thus, you begin to heal the ancestral line. However, if you continue to carry on the burdens of my mama treated me this way, my dad treats me that way, and you carry that, and I'm speaking from presently right now, speaking from personal experience. I've traveled, I've left the country, I've moved cross country, I've done all kinds of things to try to create my space of autonomy. But autonomy is tested when you're faced with the very people that have given you life. And that's challenged and that's tested, and you have to stand your ground. You have to find that inner strength within yourself and know who you are. Ask yourself, who am I? Beyond my first name, middle name, and last name, and my social security number, who am I? Beyond my race and ethnicity and my cultural upbringing, who am I? Beyond being a daughter, a sister, a brother, of such and such, who am I? What are you left with at the end of the day? And that's something that you must ask yourself, and you must answer to yourself. Because if you just live by, well, I am this, I am the daughter of this person, and I am my father's daughter, and I'm my mother's daughter, and I'm my this is my family, they're my identity. Do not make your family your identity. Don't do that. And I'm specifically speaking to those who come from very difficult backgrounds and challenging backgrounds. Because those who come from normal, dysfunctional, functional families, like, you have that moral support. You have that thing that can, you can call on this person, and there aren't any manipulations, emotional manipulations, or sabotage, or guilt, or shame, or family secrets. It's a family. It's a nuclear family. But I'm speaking directly to those that have struggled. And you find yourself being called home or drug home, and you're, it's the holy day season, and now everyone's friends and loving, and because it's Thanksgiving, because it's Christmas, so everyone has to be loving and supportive and be fake. And to those that are tired of being fake, to those that are that you want to be yourself, you want to stand in your autonomy, in your own definition of what your life means, and what you and who you are and what you do. This message is for you. Now, I am not perfect. I'm currently going through my own internal struggles with what is family, I pretty much know what family is. Family is when you're biologically, genetically related to other human beings, and you develop a strong friendship, that relationship that you have with this genetic, biological connection. When you feed that with friendship, and you nurture that with love, that's family. And it's not just one person giving all this love to a relative. It's a give and take. It's a balance. It's like, I'll give an example. Like, you call a friend, that friend calls you. You know what I'm saying? And it's a beautiful thing to have a strong, powerful friendship within a family. A relative is someone that you're just related to. That's it. It's just a title, and it's just science. That's it. So I that's my definition of what family is. But your mother's sins or wounds are not yours. And that's the thing that keeps showing up. It shows up when you are in an intimate relationship. It just does. It does. Okay? It's not going to show up as bad when you're, have a roommate or something like that. But when you have a spouse, when you have a committed partner, it definitely shows up. All that mommy and daddy issues, and you're thinking it's you, and it's not. It's just mommy and daddy showing up. All their sins and wounds that you've taken onto yourself. Because guess what? We have our own stuff we have to work through. We have our own things to process, But a lot of it is in our fundamental issues with our mommy and our daddies. And, so I ask you this holiday season, like, don't take that on. Just, you know what? And it's easier said than done. How about just ask yourself, how does my mom and my dad show up in me? How does the mother and the father energy show up in my day-to-day relationship with my closest, my companion? How does it show up when I'm hard on myself or I'm hard on another person? Right? It's there. And so, yeah, I just want to leave you with that, and may this message find you well and whole. I'm so happy and grateful that you have tuned into today's message and be on the lookout for another video regarding this topic. See you later.